what people don't realize is there's no relaxation because the maintenance of confidence of where you're at is even harder. So then when you're asking someone who's fatigued that hasn't truly owned their confidence, owned their success to go create more, they're like, oh shit, like that's going to be hard to maintain. I can't even maintain what I'm doing right now.
What if you could reclaim hours of free time each week, create legacy building wealth, and devote more energy to your passion projects without giving up on your career as a life-saving MD? Dr. Vikram Raya is a functional cardiologist, high-performance coach, and real estate expert, is here to give you the tools, strategies, and solutions you need to transform your life, unlock your limitless potential, and achieve greatness, all while freeing up your precious time. Welcome to Limitless MD. Let's dive in.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Limitless MD. I'm your host, Vikram Raya, and today I have a huge friend and special guest, Dr. Hala Sabry. She is the founder of Physician Mom Group, PMG, of 120,000 female physicians are part of her Facebook group. She is a leader in the physician space. She lives a message about empowering women physicians to go to that higher level. She is a super mom, have 5 children, 2 sets of twins, helping physicians really live a better life. She's getting them into amazing jobs. She's converting them from more of a survival mindset now into more of a growth mindset, and really is the founder of another coaching program called the 1% Women's Club. So, Hallie, welcome to the show, and I'm so excited to have you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, thank you. I just the last couple of minutes have been so amazing being in your world. So I feel like I'm just so honored that you'd invite me. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, we were talking in the green room about so many cool things, but tell me, what prompted you to start PMG first?
Yeah, I was drowning. That's what was happening. I, was working, I think this is like the story of every working mom. It's not just being a doctor, but, balancing the demands of, having kids also the cultural idea of what it's like to be a mom, right? Like this idea that you are going to be a full-time mom at home and you're also going to be a full-time, working woman as well. It's just not sustainable. My mom, she was a stay-at-home mom, so I didn't have that modeled for me, but, in my brain, I was like, I want to be my mom and and the doctor too, right? I want to be everything. And so my biggest problem at the time was I don't even know how to do that. I don't know how to hire a nanny. How many nannies do I need? I'm a shift worker. Nobody else wants, to be a shift worker. That was my thought. And looking around, I worked at a very small community hospital and I was the only woman in my group. There was only I think 9 women in the whole hospital. And so of the 9 women, I did survey all of them first. They either didn't have kids, so they were like, I don't know, I got nothing for you. Or their kids were in college. And so their advice for these older, the women with older kids was like, just wait 18 years and things will get better. And I didn't like either one of those answers. So I was like, well, there's got to be more women. Like, where are they? And so I just created a Facebook group with 20 people that I had either done rotations with, and their Facebook profile looked like they had a kid. So I was just hoping that somebody would answer my question, right? It was a very, very, very selfish, way of starting a group. And I think that's how all great ideas start, is a problem that you're trying to solve for yourself. And you think you're the only one with the problem, right? Or there's not a good solution out there, and then you end up solving it for many.
So 2014, just coming out of the financial crisis, physicians were obviously overall okay, but really the physician sort of liberation movement, which I call what's happening right now in this zeitgeist of physicians sort of awakening amongst so many different populations that I'm starting to see. But really, you were one of the forefronts, sort of the leaders in that space, where you thought, hey, look, I have issues, probably some other people have issues. Let me create a space that's safe, that's collaborative, that's a place to vent, to get support. And initially, from what you were telling me, it sounds like that was more of a reactionary, more of a support group kind of thing. And tell me how that's evolved over the years.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, I thought I was committing career suicide, because the messaging that we were told at that time, especially for being a woman physician, is like, don't ever show weakness. So for me to say, like, I don't know how to hire a nanny, like, I was so scared somebody would find out that that's what my problem was, because my thoughts were, this is how this is why coaching is so important, everybody, that, might be listening to this, is that I thought if, people would find out, other colleagues, that they would not want to hire me, they wouldn't want to work with me. Like I was a mess. Right. And if patients found out, like, oh my gosh, how would they even trust me to do CPR on their family member if I couldn't even figure out how to hire a nanny? Right. It sounds ridiculous saying this, but when you talk to physicians or really successful people, their mindset is like a lot of perfectionism, a lot of, having to have the right answers, especially in something like medicine. Right. And so I created it. It became wildly successful. And, that was a
in
journey.
2014. And
so almost a decade.
You started with 20 people and now you have 120,000.
Yeah.
That's just staggering. But I think what attracts people initially to PMG was you're authentic, you're vulnerable. You provided a real place for women physicians to interact and to talk about their issues. And it was safe, and it was,
yeah. I know. It definitely
I know
was.
it saved a lot of people's lives. I mean, I still have a lot of friends who say, oh yeah, I needed this thing. I put a post on PMG and I found a doctor, or I found this person who was able to help my child. And I mean, those stories come all the time. So tell me some of the successes from the early years of PMG.
Yeah. I mean, everything from saving lives of, our own family members, and people in the group. Also it ended up, spurring into outside the group as well. I've had people contact me through my website, saying, hey, my doctor reached out to someone on the group and I'm here today because of that. Or, I solved this like chronic issue because of that. I had a TV show that reached out to me. Oh, wow. Knowing the work I did. And I ended up, that was one of my first consulting gigs in 2019. And I ended up working with TNT and Lionsgate on a project called Chasing the Cure. And it was the whole idea, like if we took away the confinements of insurance, right? And all of the things that stop people from getting healthcare, like, could we solve their problems faster and could we get them help? And the answer is obviously yes. And it was really neat to use my my knowledge as an ER doctor, my skill set as a community builder, my business acumen, as a consultant all together. And that was like probably, it's funny. I say that I thought I was committing career suicide when I made the group. But what I didn't realize, not only was I saving my own career, but I was growing it in ways I never thought was imaginable. Right. And so after I started getting a couple consulting, gigs, that wasn't my first one, but that was my first one that was like good money. It was really good money. And I was like, oh, I could actually like make more than $500 or something like that, like on a, on a call or something like that. Yeah. I was like, I could actually do that. And so in November of 19, I turned to my husband one day, we were in bed and I said, hey, listen, I think I'm going to create a whole consulting company. And he's like, oh, okay. And then the next day he was like, you know what? Watching you grow the way that you have has made me, it's contagious. It has made me thought I want to grow. And then his career took off after that. And so I think it's just so beautiful, the story of not only so many people in the group, but also myself. And I don't really share a lot of that on the group. Yeah, I am authentic and stuff like that. But I also, I go into service mode in the group, right? I'm like, what do people need? Let me get them. But there's a lot that I have benefited from. And I'm just so grateful for the group and for everybody. It's just, my life is so different now.
I think that domino you started with that group, I mean, I can't tell, probably so many people's lives, kids, patients, physicians, careers, perhaps, it's really exploded. So kudos to you for creating such a community. And now as you're continuing in your career of growth, it seems like growth is so important to you, and contribution has always been important to you.
Yeah.
Where do you see women physicians in 2023 now as compared to 2010 or even the 1990s? Where have women physicians? Hopefully they're evolved and they have so many much more opportunities. What do you think?
Well, I think right now, like you said, in 2014, we're coming over the financial crisis, and physicians were making really good money at that time. Right now, we have such a different 10 years later. It's very different. We're in a physician deficit. A lot of people are burnt out. We just came over a pandemic. I think 10 years ago, what we were talking about in the group and fighting was we just wanted patients to recognize that we were the doctor in the room. Like, we wanted that, recognition, equality. We want to decrease discrimination. I don't really know if we've moved the needle on that, but I will say that I stopped worrying about that. I stopped worrying about equality because I started realizing that we don't have equity right now. And if we don't have equity now, it doesn't matter how many more women physicians are down the line. I know that we have more enrolled women in medical school and things like that. And eventually we'll get to a place where we're 50-50, as far as women to men, clinicians. And I'm not worried about that. I know equity is inevitable. Equality is inevitable. So right now, my conversations with people are all about equity in medicine, equity out of medicine, equity as women.
So what do you mean by equity? What do you mean? Is that like equity meaning equal representation, or does it mean like equity in businesses kind of thing?
Everything. So in medicine itself, like for physicians that are listening, it's parity, to make sure that you're actually getting paid equally as your male colleague. Now, I know that sometimes is controversial, especially with male listeners and women who like to hold up the patriarchy as well. They're like, no, RVUs they don't see men and women, but they don't realize that those RVU numbers can be negotiated with your institution, and not everybody gets paid the same and reimbursed the same based on the RVUs, on the percentage that you're actually, that you're getting from the hospital, right? People don't understand that. They also don't understand that we have, 35, 38% women now as physicians, but the leadership, not only the leadership doesn't support the 38% of women in leadership, but when we are given positions, they're positions that are not as powerful as others. So we might have like middle management, or we might have, these like lighter, titles that don't have any power and things like that. So when I talk about equity, I'm talking about power, money, influence. Yeah. I'm talking about all of that inside and outside of medicine. But right now, like just for PMG per se, I'm really talking about equity. Now, look, how am I going to solve it? How am I going to move the needle? I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. So, Hala, I always believe 5% on the problem, 95% solution. I think you're a consultant, you're a physician, you're a leader in the space, and you have access to like the barometer of the physician population. So, what are sort of like, the women listening, perhaps who are perhaps struggling for this, and even some men, who knows? But what would you say is like sort of 2 to 3 action items that you'd recommend for them if they're in a situation where they're wanting to improve their outcomes? What would you say is a good starting point for them to go after?
Okay, 3 things, or 3 steps rather. Yeah. One is be curious. Don't settle for where you're at right now. That doesn't mean you have to change your job. Doesn't mean you have to move. I'm not saying that, but even be curious. Like when people go, "Oh, I get paid the same." I used to say that too. I get paid the same as everybody else. One is that true? 2 is that okay? Like I'm a very valuable person. So now when I negotiate contracts for myself, I ask. I'm like, "What does everybody get paid?" They're, "Oh, everybody's getting paid the same." I'm like, "No, I don't want to get paid the same as everybody else. I want to get paid more." Right? I have a community that's 30% of the workforce in the United States. I have access to that, right? Like that's got to be worth more, right? It's not enough. I need to be compensated for what I'm worth, and it's not enough just to be equal to somebody else, especially when they don't have the same influence, power, all of that, right? So I think being curious, right, and then that goes to my second thing is negotiate. Like women do not negotiate; they don't negotiate enough. That includes me. I'm always pushing myself to negotiate. And one of the ways that I make sure that I'm negotiating for more is I run everything through my lawyer. Everything. She's just an extra set of eyes. She's my advocate. She actually tells me, Hala, the worst thing that you could do is start to negotiate for yourself. Like, let me do it. You're going to ruin it. Not because I don't know how to negotiate for myself, but that is her specialty. That's like saying, right. Hey, to the patient, like, wow, you have chest pain. Why don't you go order your own cardiac labs and then come back and I'll tell you what to do with them, right? Like that's what we do. We don't do that at all, right? Like we take control of that because we are the experts in that situation, right? So it's not that I just leave it to her and then take whatever she says, for fact, but she does tons of contracts, right? So there's things that she'll tell me to negotiate for that I didn't even know I could because I don't know. So I have a really good team.
We all have our blind spots, Hala. I think that's exactly what you're saying. So if you have experts on your team, let them do their job and then use them as counsel, to make your final decision. Great. So we got be curious. It's get
negotiate.
Expert negotiations going. And what's the last one?
And the third one I would say is stop externalizing your value. That is so important. There's so many women that I talk to especially that I coach in my 1% Women's Club, that they decide their value based on other people's opinions of them. And sometimes it's very, very like sneaky, you know, they're like, oh, well, if my company really valued me, they would put me in this position. Right. Something like that. Right. It's like, well, why don't you just value yourself right now? Like, if you think that you're worth that position, go get it. And if they're not going to give it to you, go somewhere else. Or, for example, even people who are not in employed situations, I see this all the time, right? People will message me, they'll see me post something, I'll be talking about a new project I'm working on or whatever it may be, right? And people will message me and go, hey, are you hiring? Or do you know of any job opportunities for me, right? And of course, if I do, I will give it to them, right? But sometimes it's like so nuanced and I don't know, right? Like, and I'm like, well, are you going to wait until you find something like that? Or why don't you just go create it? Right. And I think that, one, that's the lack of curiosity. Two, it's the lack of being able to negotiate with yourself. Right. And three, not even knowing the value that you could do that. Right. Like the value and the confidence in yourself that you are expert enough that you can do those things. Right. And so those are the three things I would preach. If anybody takes anything from this podcast, be curious, negotiate, and don't externalize your value. Like really own it.
I really love the last one because that's very unique. And
yeah,
what you just said was, it's very powerful. You said something about, they asking you for jobs or seeking and waiting for something to come to them versus, hey, if it's not on the workforce, create it, design the dream job you want and go for it, and then perhaps be your own boss. I think many physicians are scared. What do you speak to about the fear that a lot of us have, about venturing out on our own or doing something more dynamic?
Yeah. Well, to that, I say, usually people are starting to look for those kinds of opportunities that scare them when they are feeling stuck, bored, frustrated, or resentful, right? If they're stuck in their career and they're like, gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do next, right? They're bored. They're like, God, I've been doing this for a long time and I really want to be challenged, right? Or, they're resentful. They're like, gosh, I'm doing all these sacrifices and this is not the payoff, whatever feeling that is that they're thinking about, this opportunity, whether they see something I do or you do or somebody else, and they're like, oh, I really want to do that, right? But then they're scared. Well, what's more scary? Building something that could be wildly successful. And if it's not, you're going to learn a lot and you're going to become a different person. You're going to be the person who bets on yourself. Or is it more scary to be complacent and be sitting there forever, frustrated, stuck, and bored and resentful? Like, decide what's more scarier and then just do it. I like being scared. That's like, I don't know if you like roller coasters, right? But like, or maybe scary movies. I don't like scary movies. I'm more of a roller coaster girl, but I go on them because it's thrilling, right? That's the excitement of it all, right? So all of a sudden we get into the success part of our life and then everything's scary, right? And I was telling you this in the green room before, is like, it's really, I think the thing that paralyzes physicians and successful people in general the most is success intolerance. It's this idea that, like, keeping up the confidence that you had to create and own to get to where you are right now, it was tiring probably, right? And it's the idea like, okay, when I'm an attending, everything's going to get better, right? Oh, when I'm a full partner, everything's going to get better. Or when I'm a professor, everything's going to get better, right? We all have these like milestones. And what you mean by that is I can relax. But what people don't realize is that there's no relaxation, because the maintenance of confidence of where you're at is even harder. So then when you're asking someone who's fatigued, that hasn't truly owned their confidence, owned their success to go create more, they're like, oh shit, like that's going to be hard to maintain. I can't even maintain what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
Right.
I think winners and the 1% and truly successful people out there, they develop a stamina, and I think everyone else can do it too. That you just have to want what you have to have a powerful why. I think you have to go after with a powerful drive and perseverance. And then when you get there, realize it's just part of the journey. And realize there's steps and levels to your success. And then just keep the momentum and stamina there, because that's what you need to sustain all of this. Let me ask you a question. So 2014 you started, is 2023, 9 years of amazing growth. Everyone's seeing the success. They're seeing like, oh my God, she's a consultant. She was on a TV show at Lionsgate. She's a coach, a consultant. She started the 1% Women's Club. Like, she can do no wrong. 5 kids. She's like, no big deal. Where are some of the struggles, the moments where you're like, should I quit? Should I stop? Like, is there anything you can share with us? The times where like it was really tough, and what helped you get through it?
Oh man, that's like every day, right? Every day we have a choice, right? We have a choice to continue or not, right? I mean, this morning, if this interview was like this morning, I was like, I was really tired. I was like, I'm putting on a workshop this evening, right? And I'm just like, and the thought came through my mind, like, do I just want to postpone the workshop, right? So yeah, so every day, you guys, like, yeah, you might see me do amazing things, and you might see me post amazing things, but know that those are choices too, right? The choice is to not quit. Or sometimes I do quit and I pivot, right? And that's okay too, right? Like that's totally fine. There's been things I've started and I'm like, my why is not strong enough, or you know what, I thought this aligned for my values, or it's not, or the reason why I'm doing it is really to prove to myself that I'm of value when I don't really need to do that to decide that, right? So there's a lot of things that you guys don't see me actually come to fruition with. Lots of companies I've been part of that I'm not part of, or things I drop off of. I do this assessment every 6 months in my life. I write down everything I'm doing, everything that takes time, right? And I have like 4 columns. It's like, what is it that I'm doing, right? How much time does it take, right? Even, when I do this with my clients, it's funny. They're like, well, I'm on this committee, but it's only like 1 hour a month, right? And write it down, because you only have so many hours in a year, right? Or so many hours in a day, right? So how much time, what's your return on investment? And that's not just money, you guys, right? It's money, opportunity, the learning that you do, the skill sets. There's so much return on investment, right? And then what value am I honoring that I own, right? And so I do a lot of values-based work. I know a lot of coaches do. One of the things I really think is more my strong suit is teaching people how to actually apply their values and actually exercise them. When I was learning about values, I've known about values for a long time. I worked for the Disney company. That whole company is based off of values. And if you guys want to read one book to understand how you actually use values in your business, just so you can see that, since you guys are all doctors, or I don't know if all of your people are doctors, but a lot of people watching this or listening to this are doctors. There's a book called If Disney Ran Your Hospital. Huh. That's a really good book that helps you understand how companies actually use their values. And you could take that book and you can and then you can like transfer that to yourself, because you've experienced the hospital life, right? You probably experienced going to Disneyland or understanding how an amusement park works. But you could do the same thing for your life, right? What are my values, right? And then how do I actually exercise them? And I have a whole worksheet that I do with my clients and things like that actually makes it easy, because nothing is out there teaching that, right? And so I think that is a really important aspect. Now I forget what I was answering, but I love talking about values.
No. But I love that. So I was just like, what are some of the challenges you've come across?
Oh yeah.
How do you get through them?
The list. Okay, so the things that you have written down is what are you doing? What's the time that it takes? What's the ROI, and what value are you actually exercising? Got right? It. And do you need to still exercise the value in that way? Right. That's what I do. Every 6 months I do this. Right.
That's a really powerful exercise.
Yeah. Every 6 months, June and the end of December, beginning of January, depending on my vacation time. Right. I take a whole day off of my work. I sit there, usually at Panera, and I sit there with my coffee and my little Danish, and I really think, okay, really, do I still want to do this? Because you know what? I think when you take away freedom from people and you take away choice, that's what leads to burnout. Mm. I mean, for the factors that you can control, there are systemic factors also that lead to burnout, right? So I'm like, well, what do I want to choose, right? And is it still serving me, right? So there's a lot of things that you guys see that maybe I choose not to do, right? Or I fail at, or whatever it may be, and that's okay.
You know what? I really like what you're saying. It's everyone's like, oh, never quit, just do it, everything, and keep going. But I think selectively peeling off things that don't serve you any longer is smart, because you just have this limited amount of life mojo. And you just want to direct it toward the things that give you the most joy, the fulfillment, the freedom, or again, especially underlying your values hierarchy, and things change. And so getting that frequent 6-month reassessment, super smart. I love it.
And guess what I do with the things that peel off, all those people who message me that want opportunities, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to work with this company anymore. This would be a really good candidate for this person, right? For, this would be not because it's like I mean, just because I learned what I wanted from that experience doesn't mean that it's not a great learning opportunity for someone else, or that they would learn something different. That's another thing that I do. This is another like growth mindset trick that I do, is whatever I do, whether it's like I join a program, right? Or I take a job, or I take whatever, it doesn't matter what it is. I pick, and this is what I do for my clients in my 1% Women's Club, is I have them pick 3 things that they're focused on to learn. What is it that they want to learn? Who do they want to become through that program, right? And I keep them very simple, like, and very tangible in some way, right? Like people might say like, oh, I want to be more confident. Well, specifically in what? Like, let's talk about it. Like, what are you not confident in right now? And it might be, speaking up at work, right? Well, how would you know that you're confident in that? What's your goal? Well, I'm going to tell my boss I'm not going to answer my pager after 5, something like that. Okay. I'm more confidence and boundaries around that, right? Okay, fine. Let's work on that. In 3 months, you're going to be the kind of person that, values yourself so you can demand that value from other people, right? We can't ask people to treat us better than we're going to treat ourselves, right? So I teach them, right? But if you're just going to join a program to be like, oh, Vikram, make me feel better, right?
Yeah.
There's no, okay, like you're a full grown adult, and we don't know exactly how it is that what your growth curve is, and what your growth curve is and what my growth curve is so different. And so you can't compare people. And I do this in my group. I have them submit it privately. I don't share it to the group, because then you have like this comparison. It's almost like competent, like a little bit competitiveness, like, oh yeah, that
Doctor's
sounds good.
competitive?
I want to do that too.
No way.
I know. Like, oh yeah, I should do that too. Or like even in like, I'm in a business, I'm in a business like mastermind, and like you see people doing that too. Like, someone like creating a podcast, and like, oh, I don't have a podcast, I should do that too. Like, it's like, no, just focus on your own path, right? Like focus on what you want to build.
When I've been around some of the best and the highest performers out there, I noticed that they grow through subtraction and not through addition. They learn to take things off their plate and learn to slow down to speed up. And I think, the first half of our life, we're just so trying to just capture every opportunity that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
But really, once we know who we are, what we're about, our authentic journey, and like what we're meant to do on this earth, it's really selectively, taking on those things that serve us, fulfill us, and that really guide us to where we want to go. So I love how you're sharing that with your 1% of the Women's Club. That's amazing. And let's as we wrap up here, what's sort of the impact you want to have on the world?
Oh my gosh. That's such a loaded question. I think, to tell you the truth, I'm really happy with the impact I've already created. So I want to say that, like, I'm really proud of myself. And I went to medical school, and I say this story a lot. And for those of you that haven't heard it, I went to medical school really to advocate for doctors. My dad was a doctor, and he loved medicine, but he also hated medicine. He was a little burnt out, and, he would tell me like, he would be counting down the days to his, until he retired. And then in the same conversation, tell me like, did you apply to medical school yet? Did you hear back? And I'm like, why do you want this life from me that you hate? And he told me, no, Hala, you guys, your generation is just so much smarter than our generation. Like, we gave all of our business acumen away to other people. We outsourced and let them take the business, and it's true. That's what happened in the 80s and 90s, and he's like, it's up to your generation to fix it. Now, I don't think our generation fixed it. I think, I don't think we fixed it. But, in my mind, when I went to medical school, and I went to the only medical school that I got into that had an MBA program at the time in 2002, that was like not normal. And I remember the interviewer asked me, first question, he's like, why do you want to be a doctor? And I told him, I don't. I want to be a doctor that advocates for doctors. And I think to do that, I have to go to medical school and understand the doctor mindset. I have to understand how hospitals work for me to actually run a hospital, because that's what I thought I wanted to do at the time, to be able to be more of an advocate for doctors, and I have no interest in hospital leadership. That's not something I'm doing. That's not even part of my 6-month checkup. No, nothing at all. But I will say that I think that's my legacy, is making the physician space better for physicians. And I think specifically for physician parents, or the choice not to be a parent, whatever it may be. I just don't want people to have to feel like they have to pick their career or living their life, because career is just one part of your life. In fact, the way I teach it, it's just 1/6 of your life. That's it. You have so many other aspects of your life, and we ignore all of these other aspects. And so if anybody listening to this, could take that and tell one other person that your career is not your identity. It's not your whole personality. Whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, or anything like that, like, let's just grow beyond that.
Yeah.
That's
old school.
That's what I think.
Yeah, being like, they're like, oh yeah, who are you? I'm a cardiologist. No, you're more than that. You're a cardiologist, and you're a dad, and you're like, you have your passion.
And really believe what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like when you're like saying, oh, I'm a dad, but then you're thinking, I haven't played with my kids, or when I'm playing with my kids, I'm thinking about my business or whatever it may be, right? Like, really own all of those titles, because honestly, like, there's more than career. There's your health, there's your money, there's your friendships and your community, there's your romantic relationships, there's your spirituality, right? There's so much to your life. And what I find is that, like, in this world, especially with these really successful people, everything is based on career and money. And so you're living your world in like one third of it. One third of your life is in just this one part, and that's just not sustainable. It's not sustainable. It's not fun. And also, honestly, it's not teaching the next generation how to be better.
I like it. I like this concept of the holistic physician journey that you're sort of advocating for. So what's the best way for people to get a hold of you, work with you perhaps? And I know there's already the Facebook group, Physician Moms Group, PMG, that's available for everyone to log into if you're a physician and a mom, I'm assuming. But otherwise, how can people work with you?
Yeah. I mean, we accept all physicians. I don't do like a pregnancy test on arrival here or anything like that. So if you're a physician, and one of our groups is also co-ed, so you're definitely welcome.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So mypmg.com is the PMG aspect of my career. My 1% Women's Club is under halasabry.com. And obviously I'm very, very easily found on social media. So you can always message me as well. I'm pretty good about replying, but yeah, I'm easily found. But yeah, if you want help with anything that I've mentioned here, especially the coaching aspect, I definitely have been diving in there. And my real mission in life is really to create more leaders than followers. And I think that's been a really big shift for me. The minute I mentioned that to myself, I realized that my value is really promoting knowledge and inspiration and leadership for other people. It really like changed the way that I interact with my community as well. Like I don't function as an influencer or just like slinging like promo codes, which is so fun. And you can make a lot of money like that. And people do get a lot of value from that. Obviously I buy from influencers all the time, but for me, and my mission in life, it's not to, I don't want to be known for that. I really want to be known as someone who like connects people to save lives, connects people to save their career, to grow more generational wealth. If you changing your mindset helps change how you speak to your kids, so your kids they're not socialized in the same way that we were socialized, that you need to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, make a lot of money or whatever it may be, that means stability and that means happiness, right? Like that's how I want to be remembered. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much,
thank you.
Hala.
Yeah.
Guys, you heard it from Hala. This is really a mindset shift as physicians move into the next decade of life. The next breed of physicians really will be this more of a holistic physician, a physician who's really seeking growth, contribution, who's comfortable in their own skin, and who's really ready to take on more than just clocking in, clocking out of a clinic or a hospital, but really living that powerful, all-encompassing life. So thank you again, Hala, for all your words of wisdom. And guys, thank you again for supporting the podcast. And until next time.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Limitless MD. If you found value from this episode, I encourage you to share this episode with a friend and let me know by leaving a review. For more information, make sure you check out the links in the show notes below or simply visit vikramraya.com. Until next time, be phenomenal.